everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today's topic has easily been the most requested thing, which is how I color grade. Color is one of my most favorite parts of being a videographer. In my opinion, how something is colored is just as artistically expressive as the shots and story themselves. And obviously, while color is not everything, it is a huge part of your video storytelling, and it's just nice to look at. So today I'll be teaching you guys how I color and edit my videos, and also teach you some tips and tricks that you may not have heard before. First and foremost is the LUT that I use. A couple years ago, I was actually tinkering with the idea of creating a LUT. Oh, sorry, hold on, let me back up. For those of you who don't know what a LUT is, it stands for Look Up Table. And basically what that is just a list of numbers that turns certain colors into different color codes. It's a fancy name for filters on video. So I was trying to make some of these, and the one that I landed on was actually completely by accident. And while I'm very happy with the LUT that I have, that is not the point of this video. While I do think presets, filters, and LUTs are so handy to have and speed up the workflow of anybody, the caveat here is that there are no shortcuts to skill. So I'll be showing you how to achieve a similar look, but without using LUTs, without using filters, and without using a crutch. And again, I don't think LUTs are bad by any means. They definitely help speed up my workflow a lot. But the point of this is so you can learn the process to make your own creative workflow and to create something that works for you. Now, first things first with software. I do own Premiere and Final Cut, but I've lately been using Final Cut a lot more. So what I'm showing you will be based off of this, but all of the things that I'm saying are applicable to both softwares. And if you think it's helpful, I can even make a Premiere version. So let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd be interested in. So here we are in Final Cut Pro, and we have this simple shot filmed in S-Log2. So if you're unfamiliar with log color profiles, basically what it does is it flattens and desaturates the image to save as much dynamic range as possible. Long story short is the information is squished down, but if this looks scary to you and you don't shoot in a log profile, don't worry, I will also use a non-log clip to work with. So here's the shot. Nice, just walking. Now, first things first, I'm going to pull out the Lumetri scopes. The shortcut for this is Command 7 if you're using Final Cut, so I'll go ahead and hit that. So this is a graph of all of the information in the image. You'll notice how squished this looks. The highest part of the graph are the highlights, and the lowest are the shadows and blacks. So what we'll be doing is actually stretching these out to 100 and 0%. And once I do this, it will already make a huge difference, so let's go ahead and start. I'll go ahead and start a new color board and pull the highlights all the way up, and you can see that they're stretching up and down. We're gonna push this all the way up right until it hits 100, and we're gonna do the same in the shadows or blacks here and pull that all the way down until it hits 0. And already just that is a huge difference. We can already see the image coming together now. We'll hop into color now. We'll just go ahead and push this up, and if you look over here in the Lumetri scopes, you can see this being saturated as well. So something kind of fun that I'll point out here is you'll notice how it has this nice little arch and then dips drastically. This dip is actually my body in the shot. It matches one-to-one where things are located, just represented in forms of light. So you guessed it, this little bit here is the tree. Anyway, just kind of a fun little bit of information for you. Now that we've boosted the saturation a bit to try and get this looking a little better, now I'll go over to color. I generally like to push a little bit of teal in the midtones, so we'll just push this up just a little bit, not too much. You'll notice a common theme in this tutorial is less is more. So don't go too crazy, don't make something too unrealistic. The human eye is very good at detecting imperfections and if something is unnatural, so we'll err on the side of caution here. I'm good with the scopes, so we'll put that away. All right, so let's go ahead and watch our clip. That's already looking pretty good. Now you notice the shot is pretty cold. I did film this with auto white balance and usually it does a good job, but it does feel a little too cold for me. So we'll go ahead and open up a color wheel. So here under color wheels, we can find split toning, and we can add a tint of color to the shadows, highlights, midtones, etc. Now this is where you'll find the color temperature. I'm actually going to push this up just a bit warmer. And right now I'm just kind of eyeballing it. This looks good to me, but let's see what that did. Yeah, that feels a little more natural, and the tint is off too. It's a little too green, so I'm going to push this towards magenta. Awesome. Now, everything that I just did is color correction. There actually is a difference between color grading and color correction. That's a minor thing to be picky about, but I hear these terms mixed up all the time. Color correcting refers to exposure, highlights, white balance, that type of stuff. And color grading is the step beyond that, where we make it pretty. Now that we've got our shot at a decent color and exposure, we can get into the fun part. So we'll go up here to hue saturation curves, and this is where stuff gets fun. Here's where we can play around with the colors. Now, if you've ever used Lightroom, the hue, saturation, and luminance sliders are just like this, and you'll actually find a similar thing in Premiere, but all in all, this is where we can have some fun. Again, I like to push blues into teals, so I'm going to go ahead and isolate a specific color, and now I can click and push this up or down to manipulate the color, and already you can see this is doing a lot of funky business. So again, less is more, keep it natural, but I'm just gonna bump this up just a bit into the teal. Even that tiny little bit was a little too much in my opinion. So let's draw that back. Now we can mess around with some other colors. And this is the hue versus hue. So everything that I did here changes one color into another. Now, if you're having a hard time identifying this color, let's say you wanted to change this little shrubbery plant thing, you can go ahead and go to this eyedropper tool, click on that, and then simply tap on the color and it will isolate that exact shade for you. So just a neat little trick. And next, hue versus saturation. You guessed it, you pick the hue and you can control its saturation. So if we wanted to bump up that blue and make it really strong, yeah, that's bad, but you get the idea. Or, remove it. Same thing, you just push down. Kind of fun, but we'll just reset that because I'm happy where it is right now. Now, Luma. I do want to introduce a little bit more light into the sky up here. So we'll go ahead and use the eyedropper tool, select this orange. Here it is. And we can just push this up just a bit. All right, now we can turn this effect off and see what we've done. And again, I barely did anything. These are tiny little bumps in the curve, but it already made a huge difference. So play it safe, less is more, because you can always come back and change that. And if you're having a hard time being the judge of if a shot looks good or not, go do something else. Take your eyes off of the screen and then come back, revisit it, and see it with fresh eyes to see if you're still happy with the color that you got. Without, and with. All right, so here we've got a simple drone clip, nothing too crazy. And luckily this is not in a log color profile. So we're working with a typical normal video clip. Now, first things first, we're gonna pull up the scopes. Now you'll notice such a big difference. Earlier, the image was super flattened so that it could keep a lot of the dynamic range, AKA retaining a good amount of the highlights and a good amount of the shadows. And you can tell that it's properly exposed because it mostly fits within the realm of the 100 and 0 mark. So we're honestly pretty much good there. And anything that we do in the highlights, midtones, and shadows will be a stylistic choice rather than a correction. I like my shots to be moody and contrasty, and in my opinion, it's feeling a little too washed out, so I'm gonna drop these midtones. And I think this needs to be a little colder. So we'll go into temperature, push this down. And again, all of this is subjective, but I'm just showing you my process, and there is no incorrect way to color grade. Now moving on to the hue saturation curves. Now personally, these greens are a little too brownish red to me, so I'm actually going to grab this green and just pull that down right there. Ooh, I'm liking that. Yeah, this feels a lot more alive. Before and after. But that's enough for outdoor shots. I wanted to show you guys an indoor shot. This is my typical YouTube setup, and I thought it would be fun to show you guys. So we'll go ahead and open up the scopes. All right, and you can tell that this is kind of all over the place. Now, this blue little streak here is actually the neon light in the back, and clearly this is the window. Now, this was filmed in log. Let's push the highlights up. Now, I'm totally comfortable with clipping the neon sign and the window, to be completely honest. The main event here is our subject, aka me, so we'll expose until I look correct. But we need to drop the shadows down until they touch 0, just like that. That's already looking a lot better. Okay, now that's looking good. And again, it's clear that the neon sign and the windows are clipped. So if we go ahead and zoom in, there is no information here in the window. Now, if I were to bring that back down, you could clearly see each blind individually, and you can see that here in the scopes as well. I'm okay with leaving those clipped as long as I look okay. But that information is there. Just know that this clipping is intentional. All right, now that is just basic contrast, and that's already looking a lot better. It is too warm. The wall behind me is in fact white, so we will have to correct the white balance. And the shirt that I'm wearing is actually a baby blue as well. So let's go ahead and boost some color into the scene. Now let's go to our wheels, correct the white balance to make sure the walls are looking a lot wider. And you'll see just that actually introduced a ton of color back into my shirt and made the walls appear more white. Now in this case, the shot is actually too magenta, and we're gonna push that into the green. Now that was very subtle, but just the tint and temperature turned off looks like this. So we'll go into the tone curve, and I'm actually going to drop this point here, which will add contrast into the mid and the lower range. Now we'll go into the hue saturation curves. All right, that's looking pretty good. Why am I like this? Now for kicks and giggles, I'm going to show you guys the same shot, but filmed in the default color profile. All right, now there's a lot going on here. So let's open up the scopes. The neon light and the window are completely clipped. These are unrecoverable. If I go ahead and drop this back down, it makes next to no difference. Even if I brought this down all the way, you'll see this information is completely gone. You cannot see any of the blinds in the window, and it is destroyed. So no matter what we do, this information cannot be brought back. So let's add some more contrast by dropping the midtones. Now you'll notice right away that there's a lot less latitude in how much I can do to this image. A lot of the colors and dynamic range are already baked into the image. Now it's not the end of the world to shoot in a typical standard color profile. Just make sure that your exposure and white balance are pretty much spot on, at least to the best of your ability, because you can't go back once the information is baked in there. Nice. Now that is just the color board. Just some basic color correction. Now let's go into the wheels. Now let's watch that. Now again, if you look at the shot of my face, you'll notice very drastic and harsh values of light. Here it's quite bright compared to the midtones in my face. Now if we go to the other shot, you'll notice this is a far more pleasant roll off between the highlights and the dark parts of my face. Honestly, if you can help it, I would film in a log profile if you have it, though it is not completely necessary, and if you're in a pinch and if you want to save some time, it's definitely way more simple just to film as is. But if you are doing something important, I would just play it safe and use log. Here's the before. Gross. Here's the after. Ooh, much better. Now I had one last bonus tip for you guys, something that I get away with very frequently. It's a really helpful technique and very easy to do. So here we have the shot. Let me just clean it up a bit before we start. All right, now I'm feeling pretty good about where it's at. Now you'll notice that the highlights are still pretty clipped, and I could simply just grab the highlights and bring this down, but you'll notice quickly that the rest of the image is losing the amount of light necessary to look properly exposed. So what we can actually do is create another color board, create a mask. We'll change the radius so that we can make a box, stretch that out, push it up to the top, increase the feather, and we can selectively edit the sky. Here's the before without the sky edit, and here's with. Now it's subtle techniques like this that can enhance what you're trying to show. There will actually be times where I add a fake shadow to the bottom of the scene just so that it draws more focus to the subject. Now these selective edits are really helpful to draw your attention to the correct part of the image, and a fun little bonus tip for you. Well, that's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video helped you in some way in your color grading. So find me on Instagram and show me what you guys have been coloring and what you've been doing. I'd love to see your work. If you like this video, please like it. Comment down below what I should cover in my next video. Do not forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching.